Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Tasha Senne Ideas Podcast, produced by MarketAdviser. Creative marketing made simple. Today, I'm with my glorious wife and partner in parenting, Tasha Senne. Tasha is a full-time student, full-time mom, and undercover superhero. That is not known to the public. Do not share that information. Pull up a chair. You're in store for a great conversation. So I just really want to sit down and have a conversation. I think it's great to get to know the people around you and the people in your community, and especially the people in your household. You could always talk to your wife more or listen to your wife more. So here I go. So I want to start off strong. Tasha, I want to ask you, what is your least favorite thing about me?
You didn't tell me any of these questions you were going to read to me. That's not fair. I don't really know my least favorite thing about you.
You can be brutally honest, even if it's something you wouldn't, or I wouldn't like shared with the public. I could edit it, strategically, though I probably won't. But
I mean, probably the smoking. No, that's not it either. You're overreacting as your first instinct. That's my least favorite thing.
So Tasha's saying something that's very true is I tend to overreact to everything immediately, unless it's very, very carefully presented to me at the exact right moment. And the only way to know that exact right moment is, to be me and to guess and get it right just once in a while, and there's really no way to know. So that's a real problem I have, is I overreact a lot, and that's fair. That's fair. Do you see it as something I work on, or something that's improving, or?
I don't think, the actual thing of it happening is necessarily improving, but you being more aware of it is improving, if that makes any sense. You're clearly more aware that you do it, and then you do apologize for it later, whereas before you would just kind of let it die like it never happened.
That's fair. What's it like being a mom?
I don't know. I don't feel that different being a mom than I did being a regular person, but that's probably because I spent a lot of time with kids in the past and stuff, so I just have natural mom instincts that just work for me. I was probably just meant to be a mom.
Have you been told that in the past?
That I was meant to be a mom?
Yeah.
No, but that I would be a good mom, which I think are different statements.
How so?
Somebody, if they were to tell me that that's what I meant to be, I probably would have been offended by it. Because, you're just here to be a mom and breed. That is what that would seem like to me. But, telling me I'm gonna be a great mom is just, hey, I see you're good with kids, type of thing.
So it's telling you you're gonna be a great mom is saying you're gonna be a great mom in addition to everything else, whereas you were made to be a mom says that's all you were made to be great at. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Even though, I feel now that I've had a child, I feel I was meant to be a mom. I wouldn't have been fully completed or fulfilled without children.
Did you always want to be a mom?
Yes and no. There was, my whole life when I was a kid and growing up till it was probably about 20, I was yeah, I want kids. And then I was yeah, I don't know. I could probably live without kids and, do what I'm doing, but like I said, now that I have a kid, I wouldn't have been fulfilled or completed or happy without a child.
Did you always feel that way, as though maybe there was a part of you that'd be missing without it, or did you, for a period of time, have a vision of a life without kids where you were happy?
Yeah, I guess the vision I had of no kids was not completely happy. It felt like there was something missing. But it was livable.
What is different now that you're a mom? In your day-to-day life, or in your feelings, in your personality? What's different?
I don't get to do things on my own schedule. I do things according to the baby. He's hungry now, so we're eating now. He peed his pants, so now I have to wait to go pee. And stuff like that. Or he fell asleep on me, so now I have to wait to go pee.
That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
No, I see. I mean, today, for example, is a perfect, example where you were up at 5 o'clock. I mean, I woke up as well, frankly, he's breastfed, so that being said, there's only one person who can really feed him consistently the way he wants to be fed, especially if it's like in the middle of the night type of thing. You were up with him. It's not uncommon for you to be up 6, 7 in the morning, but today it was 5 o'clock, and he left the bed. And I noticed, I was having trouble sleeping and stuff without you in there and without the baby around. So I went to check, and living room lights are on, TV's on, baby's having a party, jabbering and talking and having a blast by himself, and that's just the life of Tasha. That's what it's been like for 6+ months now.
Yep, just wake up every morning whenever the baby's ready to. That's why if he sleeps till 9, I'm not that mad about it, even though I would like to consistently get up at the same time. But he's growing, so I know he needs to just sleep as much as he needs it, so not to wake him up.
I can be honest in saying I was kind of a jerk sometimes about sometimes you take a nap throughout the day, and it wasn't like I was sitting here saying you don't deserve a nap, but it was like, all right, well, it's tough to get on a schedule, falling asleep at like 10, 11 at night type of thing if you nap at 2 or 3, 4 in the afternoon kind of thing. But when you do go to bed at 10, 11 at night, that doesn't mean you actually get to sleep all the way till 6 or 7. You might be up 2 or 3 times in that time frame, and then you might actually be up at like 6 for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. So you gotta sleep where you can. And I can say from my own perspective, it wasn't necessarily like you shouldn't sleep, as more of an insensitivity to why you nap when you can, because I'm not in your shoes kind of thing. So though I can't fully appreciate the struggle of being a mom and raising a baby, even with the dad around, I can at least understand when you tell me what you're saying. I get where you're coming from.
So you're saying since you've been home more, you understand why I nap when I do, or like I sometimes just fall asleep with the baby.
Do you think it's been better since I've been home more?
I think you're starting to fully understand it more now than before. Because even when you had been home for a couple weeks, you were like, why are you trying to lay down with the baby right now at it's 3 o'clock nap? It's because I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
I've been up since 6 in the morning, sometimes 4:30, sometimes 5.
That's fair. Yeah, I probably do get better perspective on it. Well, and also I'm more engaged with them. Obviously, I have more time on my hands to be engaged with them. So, I probably understand the challenge of Jordan a little more now as well. It's not just like, I hear, well, don't get me wrong. He's getting older, so it's more stuff too. But before, don't get me wrong. I understood to some degree that changing diapers and feeding babies is tough and all that stuff. But, the bigger he gets, the more apparent his personality is, and the more apparent challenges with it.
Well, and he's a lot more independent now than he was previously, so I don't have to hold him constantly all the time. Now it's a challenge of just being in his line of view all the time.
So do you think he's naturally independent, or is that something that you or I or anybody's developed within him, or how do you think that worked out?
I don't know. I just feel like he probably has a natural sense of independence, but we also help foster it, I would say, by letting him sit, and if he does get whiny, just telling him he's okay rather than rushing to him every second, which is helpful because then he takes a while before he actually starts crying if I need to go to the bathroom or start dinner or something.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I've noticed too is, not that there aren't plenty of parents who do it, but even if you're going to tell him he's okay, it's like, well, it's different to do that from across the room than it is to do it sitting right next to him. It's like you're engaged with him. You're not telling him he's okay because you don't have time. You're telling him he's okay because he is okay, and he just needs to understand that challenges are meant to be overcome. And though he is 6 months old, and I don't really expect him to fully appreciate that principle. I mean that really only kind of facetiously the way I say it. But it's something that's useful even at that age to just kind of get him used to being frustrated and dealing with it when it comes to tummy time, which is something that you've been, the one who's really pushed that more than, well, just for the record, something we haven't mentioned yet, Tasha is a full-time student, but what she goes to school for is early childhood education. So this is kind of right in her wheelhouse, raising kids. But so you recognize the importance of tummy time, and you've consistently you don't really beat me over the head with it, but you mentioned consistently hey, tummy time. Oh, good time to do tummy time, things like that. And though he's never been a fan of it, never has. Mm-hmm. And frankly, Leland, his older brother, wasn't either. He skipped crawling because he hated tummy time, went right to walking. It sounds like I kind of did the same thing. But it's kind of a good thing to kind of, at any age to let a kid kind of start to come to terms with their own frustration and understanding that they're just mad and it's not actually the end of the world or whatever they might think. Or, mm-hmm. It's different when a kid's hungry or when they have a pee pants than when they're just mad about tummy time. And, you've done a really great job of strategizing to do it, and including me in that process. And we'll take a break now because you may or may not hear our little guy Jordan in the background crying. We'll be back soon. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience and welcome back. We were so rudely interrupted by Jordan Phoenix Senne, our 6-month-old. He apologizes and sends his condolences from the crib. Anywho, do you recall what we were talking about before we left off?
No, but I would like to jump back to the thing where I was talking about how you overreact to things right away.
Sure.
I would like to say that I think it probably helps you present things to me that I may overreact to in a more cautious way, so I don't overreact probably nearly as much as I would otherwise.
So because I overreact?
Because you know, like, it's something that you might potentially overreact to if it was the roles were reversed. You're more cautious about it.
So there's a small advantage there.
I feel like it. I don't know if you actually do that.
Well, probably. I mean, like, it's not like I'm thinking out like on purpose to, I don't know, like, I don't think like I overreact more than normal, so I'm going to go out of my way to strategize.
No,
it's just,
but
I do try
I
to be
feel like
cautious,
you would be like, well, if someone was telling me this, I would want to hear it this way, otherwise I'd freak out.
That's fair. Yeah, I do try to, say things the way I would want them to be said to me, or at least to some degree, at least be cautious to the degree that I would want someone to be cautious to me. So, yeah, to some degree, I do try to make sure I, phrase things carefully, and that's just something I focus on over time, though, because I realize the importance of language. Growing up, the level of communication in my household was not healthy for sure, and not a lot of people talked to me in the first place, and when they did, it wasn't really nice things they had to say. And it wasn't, it's even said in a constructive manner to even, have the pretension of being constructive for that matter. But, as I got older, I just realized, being in sales and, well, getting you after going into sales and reading a great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I just, realized how important it is to be careful with your speech. And really who nailed that home was Jordan Peterson. I mean, he just, in a million ways, he's said it, and for different reasons probably than I'm saying right here. But, if you're careful with your speech in your life and, stop being reckless, like first off, if you just stop being so reckless with your speech, you'd be surprised how much damage you could stop. And then if you start to be careful with it, you'd be surprised how much good you can cause to happen in a person's life. I mean, that's what coaching is careful speech and reaction to people, and that's what leadership to some degree is about. I mean, doing it first, right? Leading from the front is leadership. But in order to inspire people to lead you, you need to be able to communicate that to them on their level. And that's the challenge, is communicating to people in a way that they will understand it. And that's what I suck at. That's what I wish I was better at with you. And I try. Yeah, I hope you see I try, and I appreciate that you're seeing that. But dude, it's hard. It's not like, because we just think so different, or not even think different. We just talk different. And we just phrase things different. Like, we think a lot alike sometimes, actually, surprisingly, because we're so different in a lot of ways. But we understand each other at the very least. We have a similar sense of humor. We kind of are on the same level with wants for life. I mean, we're married, so hopefully those things are there. It is a challenge for sure, but I do try.
I would say the biggest difference is I'm more optimistic or naive, and you're pessimistic and cynical.
I'm not pessimistic at all. I am cynical, though. I'm incredibly optimistic about the world. I used to be a pessimist, and it was miserable. And that's one of the big changes in my life. It's not a choice I made to be an optimist. It was a choice to embrace Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And how can I be anything but joyous and optimistic if I believe what I believe? Yeah, I mean, like, death can't even bring me down if I believe what I believe. So no, I'm not a pessimist at all. I just understand people, and people suck. I suck. Everybody sucks. You suck a lot less than most people. I give you that.
Well, thanks.
But people suck. That's all it is. It's not like I think that, I don't know. It's not like I want it to be that way. I just understand the world to be what it is, and that we're always struggling to overcome the terror with which we're bestowed, I guess. I don't know how better to put it, but it's a terrible world. And we're always trying to just survive and, hopefully thrive within it. But it's an overcoming struggle story. It's not a paradise story that we live in. Mm-hmm. So do you think then, you said you see effort with, me working on the communication to be, like, careful and all that sort of stuff. Does that, like, make any actual difference, do you think?
I think it probably does. I mean, sometimes it might not make, like, a good difference. Sometimes it might actually offend me. But sometimes it's a good difference, like, if it wasn't put into the careful terms it was, I'd probably be upset about something or take it a different way.
What do you mean about, like, sometimes it might offend you? Is it the way I say something might offend you, or is it what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it feels like maybe like you thought so much about it and were so careful in it that it's almost condescending.
Okay.
And it could just be the tone you use sometimes too, and that could be your natural tone, and I just need to get over it, get used to it.
That's a real thing. Yeah. No, I have a tone, and I've known that for a while. I do work on it. When I'm really at my best, I can overcome it, but it's tough. Again, like, I can't remember what the statistics are, but something about body language and tone being roughly 85% of your communication, and only 15% of what you say is actually what matters in what you say. And it's something to the effect of body language. Man, what was it? Body language is about 50% of it, and tone is another 35%, something in that degree. And those are rough percentages, like, who could ever really nail it down, but they're difficult to overcome. And I could say, don't get me wrong, in sales, like I said, I got pretty good at that, but that's a whole different beast. It's like you can get one persona down, master it, and then it's pretty generic and people like it, so it works. But in a relationship, you have to master every persona possible, because you're going to encounter all of those and be all of those over the next, hopefully, 50, 60, 70, 80 years,
Yeah.
So, no, it's a challenge, definitely, for sure. What do you see? Like, what's the biggest challenge in marriage for you?
Like, not having the best communication all the time. We constantly need to work on communication.
Fair.
And I think it's probably not just our problem. I'm sure everybody needs to constantly work on communication. Because if you lose communication, you just lose a whole aspect of your relationship that's very important.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. So from the communication perspective, what's the most challenging part of that for you?
We don't always just understand each other and what each other is saying. It's very misunderstood sometimes.
So do you think it's, from your perspective, is it more me misunderstanding you or you misunderstanding me?
I think it's probably pretty even on both of them, because I seem to find when we're having conversations, I'll say this is what I felt like you said, and you're like, no, this is what I meant. And I was like, well, then that's a lot less offensive, and vice versa. We seem to have a pretty even amount of conversations like that, where you're like, well, this is what I got from what you said, and I meant something completely different. And
that's fair. I mean, it's almost like, people speak the same, obviously, language a lot of the time, right? In the relationship, we both speak English, but it is almost like we're speaking different languages with what we mean about, the word mad is one we could say. It's easily misinterpreted. You might mean something completely different about being mad than I do. For me, if I say mad, it means I'm a little bit frustrated and just probably be a little bitchy about something. I might get pissy for a little while, and I'll forget about it in 20 minutes, and hopefully 10 minutes later it'll blow over and we'll just not have to talk about it. But for you, mad might mean something completely different. I don't know what that means for you exactly. Or sad, or any word really in a relationship could be, negotiable, I guess, to some degree. You kind of have to figure out and agree upon a common set of words, I suppose, or a common set of communication. I don't know, I never really thought about that to the degree of you and I before.
Yeah, that's because we don't agree on things like what the word yell means.
There's the perfect one. The word yell. Anybody out there in a relationship, I am sure, if you have not had the argument about what the word yell means, its definition, and if you have not brought up the Webster definition on Google, well, then you haven't been together more than 6 months, I would suspect. But no, that's one that honestly we definitely have a disagreement out. What would you say your definition of yell is?
I guess when I think about it, it's any tone change that's negative. It would be me saying that you're I would say you're yelling at me, and I'm sure a lot of females are that way. Any negative tone change, it's oh, you're yelling at me.
See, my input there would be the part that I struggle with is the word negative. When you put in tone change, it's a perspective word. It's something that's subjective. It's not like an objective fact. What is a negative tone change? Well, you could say it progresses lower, but that's not actually what we're doing. We're progressing up, getting louder, but something that's perceived as negative socially. It all depends on who you're talking to then, or the context and a million other things. So it's so hard to measure. So for me, yell, I do go back to that whole Webster's dictionary. Now, I don't know the definition offhand, because I'm sure I've only looked it up once or something like that. I don't mean to be a real jerk about it or anything. But, no, you really have to, it should be raising the tone to where it startles somebody, probably. Or, the dog looks at you funny, maybe. Or, I don't know. I mean, but, I can't measure octaves offhand because I'm not that smart. But, if you double your volume, then maybe that's a yell, no matter what your volume was before that, But I do think there has to be some sort of like aggression or yell or like an actual large increase in volume for it to count. Like just because I got upset, I don't think I'm yelling. I think I can just be a little frustrated. Sometimes I do have a tone though. I'll give you that. Like my tone can be a real prick. Like I mean, not purposefully. I just understand I'm pretty venomous when I'm angry with my words and my mannerisms and the way I when I could conduct myself. It's not like purposeful, and frankly, a lot of time, most of the time, I regret it. Especially with you, every time I regret it when we argue. But no, I just I'm pretty pointed with my words, and I don't really let people finish their sentences, and I'll cut you off immediately as soon as you make a point that hasn't really like if I let you finish a sentence, your point was probably right. But if I cut it in half at that halfway mark in the sentence, well, then I can dissect it. I can be right on that half, and then the second half I can be right on too. And then somehow you're wrong, even though you were right. Those type of things tend to happen. I know they happen. It's not like I'm thinking of them at the time. I just think about what I do wrong a lot. Because I do want to get better. Like, it's not like I sit here and think that my flaws are okay. That's something I hope you understand. I do work on them for sure, like a lot. It's just a slow build.
Yeah, well, progress is progress nonetheless.
I do like to say perfection is the enemy of progress. And progress is what you need really. That's all you can ask for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, most females, like 99% of the females in the world would agree with me that their definition of yelling would be any sort of tone change that makes them feel like, oh, now I'm in trouble.
Well, I'm not at liberty to have an opinion on that due to my genetic and biological structure.
No, but I'm sure you could argue that most males probably think like, I wasn't yelling.
Oh yeah.
Did my voice raise that much?
Yeah. Well, I think you can make some arguments from the sense of like just having bass in your voice. It's going to seem a lot like I'm used to the bass of my voice because it's just what it is and what it has been and what it will be. Whereas from the female perspective, it just might be a little more foreign to you for like to hear that bass come into play, especially in an aggressive manner or in the context of an argument. It just might be a little startling to anybody. I mean, dogs get scared. That's why I mentioned that, or the baby. Not that I don't think I think I got. Remember he headbutted me the one night, and I was like, "Fuck," or something like that, or I said something.
But I think it was just like the sudden you getting a little louder is what scared him.
But that's kind of what
it was a whisper, nonetheless. But
yeah, like still... it was a whisper. Yeah, it was like a whisper. Kind of whisper yell. Where, like just for context, baby has a tendency to head dive at people. We like to call it kisses, but I think he's headbutting me. Anyways, he caught me in the lip, and I kind of turned away and said, "Fucking," startled him, and he poked his lip out and started crying a little bit. But that was the point I was making, is it wasn't necessarily the volume. It didn't really matter what the total volume was. It was the increase in volume from a total whisper to a slightly louder whisper. And even though you're an adult, and whispers might not get you, but a tone change from a talking level to excited talking level might certainly seem like, whoa, back off, buddy.
Well, yeah, but even with whispers, if we were like talking in bed over something we disagree with, and your whisper tends to like increase in intensity, I would still say you're yelling at me.
Yeah, that's that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Exactly, it's the relative volume, not the absolute volume that matters, and that's where I struggle. That's where I feel our disconnect is a lot of the time. Is just the sense of like I look for absolute facts and realities and truths, whereas I don't think. It's not like you're looking for absolute or you're not type of thing. It's not that. I don't think that's the ball game you're playing, more or less. It's more just like, this is what feels correct to you when you say it, and it's pretty much correct, but there might be something that's just technically not quite the right word for it, and then I can't really understand what you're saying, because to me, that one piece of the puzzle makes the whole puzzle a mess. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I just can't understand it. So it's just, we just think differently about, little tiny details, and it can throw off the whole bigger picture, and it really, like I'm sure you would agree, we don't really disagree on that much overall. Like we might have a few like disagreements throughout a day or through an argument, but like if we were to go down the list of what do we believe about life and our kids and what do we want out of life and things like that, we'd have a heck of a lot more agreements than disagreements. You know what I mean? We think a lot more alike than we think not alike. It's just those small details make a huge difference because they magnify. Do you see the world differently now since having your son?
Yeah, I'm more, as I had argued earlier, I was optimistic about the world and naive. I'm a little more cynical now than I was before. Like, I think everybody's trying to kidnap my kid that looks at him at the grocery store, and the little old man's like, oh, cute baby, how old is he? And I'm like, get away from me. And now I'm
Well, in all
good.
fairness, that stems from she has a coworker, a person she used to work with, that would frequently make comments about snatching her child. And I thought, like, I'm not gonna lie, Tasha sometimes tells me stories from work or people she knows. I'm like, oh, calm down, no big deal. Like, you're just overreacting, but then, like, I heard it too, and like the jokes just got a little real sometimes. I'm with Tasha. It was a little concerning. So I think you have a very real fear. And didn't you have some crazy nightmare about somebody snatching their baby or something like that as well?
Yeah, the wrestler.
Who was it? What wrestler?
Randy Orton was stealing my baby and making him starve. And it wasn't just my baby, it was like other babies. And I had to go save all these babies.
So we want to just clarify, Randy Orton, we don't mean any harm. Don't mean to taint your likeness by any means, but yeah, it was pretty comical. Tasha had a nightmare about Randy Orton, the WWE wrestler, snatching babies.
I think it was like just one of those weird pregnancy dreams.
Yep.
Which apparently lots of moms have. They're just obnoxious, vivid nightmares that are completely like unrealistic. I don't think Randy Orton goes and steals babies, but
no, he seems like a fairly nice guy, I guess. I don't know much about him, but
I thought you said he flipped a kid off in the audience.
Oh, he did that one time, but with wrestling, it's part of being you stay in character. Like I appreciate a wrestler that has the courage as a villain to be that in character to flip off a child. Like, don't get me wrong, is it in most contexts frowned upon to flip off children? Sure, I'm not gonna flip off a kid. But if I was a WWE wrestler and I had an excuse, it's it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I've flipped off Jordan and Melania before, so
that's fair.
Not to their face. Fair. They like turned their heads after they were being butt heads, and I flipped them off because that's the only retaliation you really have as a parent and aunt. Is when they turn their heads, you can flip them off or stick your tongue out at them.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever flipped them off yet. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not that I necessarily wouldn't, it just never really crossed my mind. It's pretty funny. But you spend, as a mother, obviously, always with a kid, so I can understand your frustration. I've heard a lot worse things. You hear mothers that oftentimes, now, I mean, it's pretty common from what I understand for mothers to sometimes think about, like, throwing their baby out a window. Like, not like they're actually going to do it type of thing, but just this kid's so frustrating. What am I going to do? I just want to throw it out the window sometimes. Oh.
I don't think I would ever do that or I've ever thought about doing it, but I've said things like that.
Okay.
Like, I think moms say things like that a lot. They don't actually be like, they'd never actually throw their child out a window. But they say things like that because it's a way of just relieving their tension, because babies are difficult and babies are hard and you can't communicate with them. As we were talking about communication being key in marriage, it's also a key with children, which you have to learn how to decipher cries, whines, and whimpers to communicate with them, and it takes a while to figure it out.
That's true. That's very true. So you said you see the world differently since having your son. You're a little less naive, a little more cynical. Do you think I'm cynical? Do you think I'm naive? Or do you think I'm realistic? Or where on the scale of that? If, like, say the number 0 was naive, the number 5 was realistic, and the number 10 was cynical, where on that scale of numbers would you place me?
I would have put you at probably like a 7 or an 8.
Okay, so somewhere between realistic and cynical.
Yeah.
Okay. Where would you put yourself?
I would put myself still between naive and realistic, so like a 4 or 5, like between there.
Oh, you think you're realistic?
Because like, the thought of your child getting kidnapped is realistic. The thought of, like, before I had I feel much more safe now that I have my wedding ring on, too. Because the thought of, like, people seeing, like, oh, she doesn't have a wedding ring on, she's just a single mother, nobody's gonna miss her, I'm gonna kidnap her and that kid and kill him, is probably more of a thought that would go by than if somebody sees a wedding ring on someone's finger. I'm not saying all killers would think like that, but
you never know. I mean, I
would think they would think a little more about, well, is this person I'm trying to kill gonna be missed or not so much?
It's true. That's true. You never know if there's a husband right around the corner, or a person right around the corner.
And I feel a lot safer now that I have my ring on. Not that I've really been out in public that much with my ring on because coronavirus. But I do feel safer now with it. So I think I still would like to see the good in people, like I always have tried to. But I also, like, when it comes to my child, I don't see the good in people. I look for the bad first and then see if I can trust them later.
Okay. I get your comfort. I mean, I didn't mean to scoff at you being realistic. I do scoff at you being realistic, though. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying you're unrealistic either. You're not so far off the scale that it's, like, crazy. But, like,
no,
if you think I'm cynical, come on. Like, you're a little naive. Not a lot.
I imagine when you scoffed, you had that conversation between you, me, Joe, and Connor at work popped into your head.
No, not really, but
No.
it does now that you mention it.
I imagine that would be the type of thing that's like, you're really that naive.
No, I mean, yeah, but I feel like you knew that. You just don't want to admit it. I feel like half the time you're not really that naive. You just refuse to admit it because, I don't know why, because you don't want to change some of your habits or behaviors. Because oftentimes when people confront realities, it means they have to change something. Otherwise, they have to, accept something different about who they are.
Well, I think it was more or less that I cannot fathom that many people that I was friends with that really had ulterior motives to try and sleep with me.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of, just for the record.
I couldn't
well, now we have to add context. So the conversation we had was with a couple of friends of ours, and we had been having a discussion about, like, how appropriate it is to have just kind of, like, hang along friends of the opposite sex, like loose and casual friends of the opposite sex that really aren't, like, mutual friends necessarily once you're kind of married and in a really committed relationship. So I kind of had the perspective that as a guy, I can tell you from a guy's perspective, I know a lot of guys, and myself included, that I don't really have female friends unless they're mutual friends with my girlfriend or my wife. I don't really have female friends unless I have some real perspective or some real, motive for them. If I'm a single guy, I should say. I should add that as well. If I'm a single guy, I don't have female friends unless there's something I'm interested in about them. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to sleep with them, but it means I have an interest in them. I like them. So all it really would take then is the proper circumstances and maybe the wrong mixture of who knows what, chemicals or feelings, in order to put us all both in a bad predicament. You know what I mean? People make poor decisions all the time. And I think a poor decision that we could make on a day-to-day basis is to hang out with people that we find attractive or that we are attracted to their personality, and to think it's safe over a long period of time, to think that we're somehow smarter or stronger than everybody else who's fallen victim to the human condition, the most basic instinct, lust. I don't think I'm smarter than that. I don't think I'm stronger than that. I don't think really anybody is, frankly. And I'm not saying nobody can control themselves or go an entire lifetime with all the male or female friends of every gender and every, every gender there is out there, for their entire life and never have a problem. I just don't see myself necessarily wanting to put myself in a position of risk, either as the recipient or the, perpetrator of the cheating, I guess. I just, even David in the Bible, a man after God's own heart was overcome by lust so much so that he sent a man to his death to steal his wife, essentially. I don't think I'm greater than David, so I'm not putting myself in that position. So basically, the conversation was I pulled together a friend of ours who was a single young guy, popular with the ladies, and another one who's also a single young guy, popular with ladies, but one of them's kind of more of a jockey type, sports, just hard to explain, because we're in northern Wisconsin. But northern Wisconsin popular with the ladies. He's the ladies like him. And the other guy as well, he's just in a different way popular with ladies, but different perspectives. A little more sensitive, a little more clean cut, things like that. More of a subtle kind of operator. Whereas my friend Joe's not afraid to, probably walk up to a girl, say, hello, how you doing? My name's Joe, nice to meet you. Strike up a conversation, whereas my friend Connor would probably do similar, the same thing, but might more take his time in the process and get to know the girl. More interested in, longer term friendships and relationships and things like that. So because they had such different perspectives and were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum of both being interested in the same gender, at the very least, I felt it was a good opportunity to provide a kind of overall grand scheme perspective. And both to some degree agreed that, yes, there might be one or two exceptions, that there are certainly, friends they have that are female that, or of the gender they're attracted to that are strictly friends, but it's like one or two exceptions, and almost exclusively beyond that, if they are within the friend zone of any sort of friend sphere, somebody they text or have on Snapchat or Facebook, or they see the pictures, it's truthfully at the core of it for the reason of attraction in some sense. There was just no way around it. And that was kind of the message we got, frankly. Something that I've kind of always said, more or less. It's just because, frankly, that, just being an honest human being myself and just telling you how my friends talk to me, but I could understand from the female perspective, you'd want to believe that, your guy friends who you just frankly want to be friends with don't have that ulterior motive to want something more from you.
That's like, I still kind of find that hard to believe.
Well,
even though we had that conversation, but
unfortunately, it's kind of the truth. I'm not saying everybody. But I don't think it's something you play with. I think it's you. I think it's like 99%. You know, I think there's like 1% of people out there who really just are like, you know, morally hold it together like that.
Actually good people, yeah.
I don't mean to say actually good people. No, that's not what I mean at all. Because it doesn't make you bad to have a flaw in your character or to like want to be with somebody who's taken by somebody else. That's not a character flaw even itself. There's nothing wrong with that, with attraction. It's natural. That's what I mean. That's why I'm afraid of it when it comes to myself with other people or you with other people or the other way around for that matter. Because it's nothing wrong with it to some degree. It's only wrong if you're violating your own marriage or the sanctity of somebody else's marriage, let's say. That's when I think it's wrong to you know, fulfill that attraction or to feed that attraction or to nurture it, things like that. But to be attracted is not, that's natural. But to nurture it's something wrong depending on context. So that's what I'm afraid of to some degree. But also just irresponsibility, you know, younger people, things like that. People make stupid decisions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
As you get older, you're less likely to. And maybe I'll feel different in 10 years. Maybe when we're 35, you know, or 45 or 55, I might feel entirely different. But it just doesn't seem like, you know, you oftentimes put people of the opposite gender who are attracted to the opposite gender together over periods of time. And, you know, feelings don't develop. You know, if they're all, you know, if they're, you know, they're friends. I think things develop from one end or the other, or sometimes both. You know, and it just oftentimes causes, you know, trouble, you know, or just ends up leading in really difficult situations. It's just not worth it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, we've talked about this, and you have, you know, a couple of guy friends from your life that you've always been friends with. That's like, okay, do I ever feel uncomfortable about them? Sure, absolutely, I do. You know what I mean? But like, am I going to make a big stink over it? No, because I understand that it's my problem, because I'm wrong if I choose to make it a problem unless there is a problem there. I trust you to be honest with me about who you've had intimate relationships with and to weed those people out and to tell me who really is important in your life and to weed out everybody else. And we go from there. And likewise, I definitely do the same thing for you as well. But, you know, it's really, you know, I mean, trust is essential in that process, but it's just not something, no matter how much I trust you, it's just, you know, we're both human at the end of the day.
Yeah, fair.
Like, what do you think about that? You know, like, do you still struggle to accept it, or do you, like, accept it, but it just, like, you don't like it, or what do you think? Like, if you had to specify a little more.
I guess I accept it, but I don't like it. Like, I went through, I cleaned everybody off my Facebook and stuff, and I'm still, sometimes I'm a little sad because there are people that I truly thought probably didn't have any interest in me like that, but to just be safe, we cleared out everybody and stuff besides, like, the literal exceptions that we'd already talked about.
So do you think that's unfair, or do you think that's fair, or what? Because we discussed it, right? Like, it wasn't like something where I was like, okay, I'm coming home today, and here's your phone, you need to go and delete every X amount of people off your Facebook. Like, we discussed about, like, you know, principles and things like that. Like, what do you think?
I think it's fair, just for the sake of, like, making sacrifices, even if you don't entirely 100% agree with them, to try and keep your spouse happy, and vice versa. Like, if I had asked you to do the same thing, you would have done it.
Okay.
Type of deal. Like, so I think it's fair of you to ask, and it's fair for me to compromise and do it, and I don't have to fully be happy about it.
That's fair. Do you think I make compromises like that for you?
I would assume you do. I hope you do.
Well,
I guess I can't think of, like, a specific, like, thing right now.
But you don't feel as though I wouldn't, though? Would that be fair? Or what do you think? Like,
yeah,
I feel like if you asked, I would.
I don't feel as though you wouldn't. Yeah, if I made something very clear that was very important to me, that you would do what I said.
Okay, that's fair. That's kind of what I was wondering, I suppose. I mean, I think that's kind of the key of it, right? Is, you know, don't ask anybody to do anything that you wouldn't do for them, first and foremost, and try to be reasonable even then. You know, try not to do unreasonable things for people, you know, so then you don't put them in weird spots, maybe. You know, that's not a bad place to start, but, you know, yeah, I mean, I do understand that. It's to some degree a little bit of a difficult one, and I definitely appreciate your sacrifice on that, and I do hope you understand that. There's really not much you could ask me to do that I wouldn't. I mean, within reason, of course, you know, I mean, I'm not going to sacrifice anybody to you, you know, or anything like that. But I'll certainly give you my life and my love and every ounce of work and hustle and respect that I can give you, and try to give you a great life. But yeah, okay. So, well, let's move on to a little bit more about the kids. I wonder, what is your greatest hope for your children? Doesn't mean a goal necessarily, but your greatest hope overall for them.
Well, that he just, like, turns out to be morally good and believes in Jesus and stuff. Like, I can't give any specific goals because, I mean, he's 6 months old. I don't know what kind of skill set he does have because I don't want to be like, I hope my kid's an NBA basketball player, and then at some point he can't run because he has asthma or something, and, you know, I don't want to put dreams like that on them. I don't want to dictate what they do. I just would like them to be morally good and follow Jesus, I guess. It's like my greatest hope for them.
Okay. So, what do you think's the most fundamental, foundational piece for raising your children to be morally good and to follow Jesus?
To also, like, practice what you're preaching to them. You can't just, yeah, Jesus is good, you need to go to church and stuff, but us sit at home while we send them to Sunday school and stuff like that. We can't do stuff like that. Not that my dad doesn't believe in Jesus and stuff, but he'd let us go to Sunday school and he'd sit at home, like. And I don't think that's the best way. Like, if you look at me, my brother, and sister, how many of us are really that spiritual? Though Nick is starting to find some spirituality, and Amanda sometimes goes to church when she feels like her life is super out of control, but I don't think she frequents it at all because she doesn't feel like it. She has other motives in her life right now, and she hasn't found Jesus the way that I have, or Nick is beginning to. Though Nick doesn't go to church either, he just prays.
Yeah, well, you never know, man. God works in a lot of really crazy ways. You know, like, I try not to judge anybody's journey or where, like, the fact that they're searching is a good sign to me always. It doesn't matter where they're at in the searching process, as long as that's where they're looking is towards God.
Yeah, I feel like, though, we probably would have all started searching a lot heavier or sooner had both our parents both frequently went to church with us. Granted, we came from a split home and stuff, like.
Yeah.
And my dad never made Cena take us to church either, which I'm okay with, because I would not have liked going to Catholic church.
Well, why do you believe it all, then, if nobody really made you?
Well, my mom did.
Oh.
My mom would, on her weekends, she came to church with us, but, like, on her weekends, she didn't have us. She would pick us up for church sometimes. Or, like, my dad literally lived 3 blocks away from the church, and sometimes a football game was on and I didn't want to be home while my dad was yelling at the TV, so I'd go to Sunday school.
Fair.
Like, I would just walk to church.
Yeah.
And then talk my mom into bringing me to McDonald's after church. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But being that the church was so close to my house, it was easy to walk there.
Did you like going to church specifically, or was it just kind of
Sunday
a place to get away?
school. I liked Sunday school. I didn't like. It was like more old schooly pastors. Like, it was an old schooly church. Most of the people were old there, and there was a couple like kids, and I liked helping out with the younger kids. I ended up like teaching a vacation Bible school. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks, but I got the flu the second week, so I only taught it for the first week. Which I really was sad about. I'm still really sad about it because it was something I was having fun with, and I liked like planning the crafts and activities and figuring out fun Bible verses that like kids could learn and memorize. It was fun. But
do you think that had something to do with why you really want to work with kids now?
Like I said earlier, like I've always just like gotten along with kids well. I've been around kids my whole life because my mom is the 7th of 9. Her sisters all have kids who have kids that are not too much younger than me. Like all my 14, 15-year-old cousins, like I change their diapers, I help babysit them, I've been around them when I was in like 7th and 8th grade, 6th, 7th grade and stuff. Once they all started having kids, I was helping out with my mom babysitting them because my mom didn't have a whole lot of social life after my parents got divorced, so she'd go babysit her great nieces and nephews and stuff, so their moms and dads could go out and stuff. So I mean, I've always been around kids. I've always liked babies. I've always liked helping teach babies things, too.
Okay. That's fair.
And I guess even though I don't remember it, my mom used to have an in-home daycare when we were younger.
Oh, that makes sense, then.
Yeah.
So your mom's always liked babies, too, then, huh?
Yeah.
Family thing. Well, your sister likes babies, too. But, obviously she's doing different things in her life. But...
Well, yeah, my sister likes the idea of babies. She doesn't want babies.
Well, she likes being around babies, though. Yeah. That's what I mean. She likes kids,
Yeah, she likes being the aunt. She likes being the cousin.
But she just doesn't want kids yet, yeah.
sounds like she doesn't want them at all at this point, which is fine.
Well, it's because she's like 24, man. She'll figure it out
Well,
in 5 years.
I don't think there's anything wrong with like liking to work with kids and be around kids, and not wanting to have kids
No,
either.
but she will. Your sister definitely
'Cause-
will. She's just 24. You can tell by the way she talks. She will in 5 years. She's just
Well,
too
my
young to
cousin
understand.
Jessica loves kids and stuff, and she works with kids, but she does not want to have kids.
I don't know Jessica. I know your sister though, and I know your sister's gonna want kids in 5 years. That's all I'm just saying. I mean, trust me, man. Give it time. She'll settle down. Maybe she'll find a guy she likes, something like that. But one way or the other, I'm not saying she will have them in 5 years. I'm just saying she'll start to want them within the next. She's just young and having a good time. That's what she's doing. Like, it just wouldn't be. It wouldn't fit into her whole psyche and like her whole worldview to say I want kids right now. It wouldn't make sense to her to even think that.
Yeah, fair.
You know, she would have no way to make it make sense. Nobody to make it make sense with.
That's fair.
She doesn't even have a boyfriend. She's just having fun right now.
Yeah.
Well, what is your greatest fear for your children?
Them dying before I do.
That's probably a pretty natural one.
Yep. That absolutely is my greatest fear.
Yeah, that'd be tough. That'd be tough. I don't know how to process that one. Well, that's pretty short and sweet, and we can move on from there. What makes a good parent?
I would say not thinking you're the perfect parent, thinking that there's room for improvement in your parenting, and so not thinking you're a good parent can help make you a good parent. Obviously, there's exceptions to that, because I mean, there's people who are doped up on meth and stuff that say I'm not a good parent, but they're not doing anything to better being a parent. But like, there's also people who are like me who keep saying that they think they're not that great of a parent, but they work harder every day to be as good of a parent as they can be.
So you're saying basically a good place to start is to just assume you could be better.
Yeah, always thinking you can be better.
That's definitely good. I want to circle back to the fear thing. Short of that, sort of death of your child, like just for the outcome of their life, let's say, we're talking, I don't know, just life outcome, assuming they at least remain more or less healthy physically, and live like 80 years. What then would be your greatest fear for your children?
I don't really know. I mean, like, I guess that, like, I failed them in some sort of way that really alters how they end up in life.
Okay, like, can you think of any way that, based off of just knowing yourself, you might be susceptible to? Like, some character flaw that you struggle with that you think could potentially, if left unchecked, affect your children and be something that might lead to what you said?
Maybe, like, being quick to judge people, but I don't feel like that's that big of a character flaw, because usually when I'm quick to judge people, it's a gut feeling, and it always ends up being right. And when my dad was like that with my friends, he was always right. Which really sucked, because I always, I have a tendency to always want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But then when my dad was right about things, I was grounded and my dad was right. But I think, like, in that instant, like, the way it worked for my dad, it turned out good for me, because I didn't end up hanging out with bad crowds that I could have ended up hanging out with because I thought I was smarter than my dad. And then I was like, oh, no, these people are really up to no good. And then I stopped hanging out with them and things.
How about your tendency to want to be right all the time? Could that impact your child?
Probably.
How?
I'm not really sure how it would impact them. I think it probably could. I mean, I know it impacts you. You get frustrated when I bring up things like the exit from Walmart to here and stuff to try and prove that it's faster, because I feel like I'm right and you're not right. But, like, I guess it could affect, like, communication with my kids, because they won't want to tell me things because they just think I'm going to turn it into I'm right and you're wrong. Maybe.
I feel like I have that problem with you a lot of time. For, like, I'm the one who ends up making you feel wrong and I'm right. So then you don't like to communicate with me sometimes. Actually, I feel like that's a problem I struggle with as well, just maybe in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, I would say for myself, for what I would fear might kind of be a problem for our kids is my tendency to be so analytical and strategic and wanting to push and just like I have a pretty good understanding of like what it takes to improve, right? Like you gotta push through whatever's hard. If it's frustration, pain, whatever it is, you push through 10% more than what you're capable of today, and then you do that again tomorrow and the next day, and eventually you'll be better, a lot better type of thing. And I think because of my understanding of that, to some degree, it's like kind of I let it make me insensitive because I take out the human element. I make everything like a game or like numbers.
Just do it.
Yeah, like it's a strategy, it's a plan, it's on paper, it's written. Like why can't we just do it? Just make a decision and do it. Well, there's a lot of reasons why you can't just make a decision and do it. And I struggle with anxiety every day. I tell you about it. Whether it's making phone calls or answering the phone sometimes. It's the craziest thing in the world. I don't understand why I can't just do things sometimes, or why sometimes I have to just let a phone call go to voicemail before I call him back. There's a million reasons out there, and for me there's 1,000,001, and for him there's 1,000,002, and for everybody else there's a million more. So that's something I could see getting in the way if I'm not careful. Is I'm not always. I might be aware of people's feelings, but I don't know what that means sometimes. I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know how to make it matter that I know what you feel like. Just because I know how you feel doesn't mean anything if I can't respond in a way that's helpful. And that's a problem I have. What do you want your children and grandchildren to remember about you?
It's a mixture between how funny and hilarious I am, and also stop shaking your head at me, and also how caring and loving I am.
You want them to know that you're perfect.
No, because I'm not perfect. I want them to forget about me being naggy and always right. I want them to remember that I'm caring and loving and I'm hilarious.
Okay. That's fair.
I would much rather them be like, oh, remember that time Mom did this really hilarious thing and she jumped out and scared Dad and he peed his pants? Rather than, oh, remember that time Mom wouldn't stop bitching about this?
I want to emphasize that never happened. I have not peed my pants.
Yet.
Fair. I'd say if I had to pick, I don't know. I kind of tend to go a little more philosophical. So, I mean, it'd be something to the effect of I just want them to, I want somebody to remember how hard I tried. It doesn't mean I had results always. I could have, just very, I don't know how to word it appropriately, but I could have very seldom results or just one great thing that I did. And if that's just my kids, is the one great thing that I did was, do a great job of being as available to them, as supportive as I possibly could. That's enough for me. That really is. Just being a great dad is enough. But I just want them to know that no matter what I was doing, I always put everything I had into it, and that included them, and that they were worth more than anything else to drive me to do my absolute best for them, and that if that was the only thing I was great at, I was great at that. And hopefully I'm great at a few more things than that. But at the very least, I'm going to be great at that. That's what I want them to remember.
I don't think that'll be that hard to do.
You don't think so?
No, you just got to continue to be a great dad, and it might not be. They might not remember it in every aspect, because even though my dad's still alive and stuff, I very well remember he made a conscious effort all the time, no matter what. Came to every one of my games. Came to every one of my brother's games. If we had games on the same day, he would come and watch first half of mine and zoom off to the second half of his. He made it to the game some way, shape, or form. Brothers, sisters, stepbrothers, everything. So, he tried. He was obviously trying, and it's very apparent there that he tried. Not that he didn't try in other aspects, but that's, a clear aspect that I know he tried hard in. And that's, something that I'll always remember, even when he does die and stuff. And that's, that's kind of, that's what you're asking, right? Is, what do you want them to remember about you, when you're gone?
Yeah, what do you want your legacy to be for your kids and your grandkids? And
then, I stick to what I said. I don't want my kids telling stories about how I was a bitch all the time.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think anybody wants to be a bitch or an asshole or, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be remembered for the negative stuff.
You said you can edit things, right?
Yeah.
I just don't want my kids' phone calls to be like yours and your brother's are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really don't want that.
They're comically bad.
It's hilarious listening to you guys, and I'm sure you guys are having a good time doing it. But I don't want to be dead. Having my kids talk about me that way and me being able to like look down and hear it and see it and be like, oh shit. Yeah. I guess I fucked up at some point because they don't remember the good stuff.
Well, I remember good stuff on my mom. Like, you know what I mean? It's not all bad. There's just, we just had a crazy life growing up.
Yeah,
you know
but the good stuff your brother and you reminiscing on, or stuff like, yeah, your brother's like, I did coke with mom and her boyfriend.
Well, it's not good stuff. That's a horror story. But that's like,
we're
laughing, but we laugh when we're nervous or we're upset. I don't know if you've caught that yet, you know, but.
Well, no, I guess when you're nervous, yeah, when you're upset, I guess I didn't notice.
Well, if it depends on the circumstance,
like,
it's, more nervous.
I don't hear a lot of, like, good stories. I hear a lot of, well, she attempted to do this good thing and it turned out into tragedy, like when she tried to bring you and your friend to the Wisconsin Dells and your car blew up and stuff.
The attempt matters.
Yeah, but, like, the whole rest of the story, like, has negativity to it, too.
Well, yeah, but it's not all her, like, it's, there's, I get what you're saying, but, like, so, that's all I could say, I guess, I don't know, so, yeah, it sucked to some degree, and, yeah, there's a lot that could have been done better, but, so, like, I'm here, and I like my life, and I'm very happy with who I am.
I want my kids to have stories that are, like, a full good story with no negativity.
Oh, I get you. Yeah. Like normal family stories.
Like a full good, like,
I don't have
remember that time mom and dad brought us camping and I caught this big ass fish and we had s'mores.
No, all my good memories that have some fucked up context.
And then Jenna broke her elbow or something like that because we pushed her on the swing too hard. Like, it has a negative thing to it, but it wasn't, like, that negative.
No, all my positive stories about, like, a normal family. Like, anything with them, like, going fishing or camping, it's like...
It's your grandma and grandpa.
No, but I was in a group home, and I was in Northwest Passage. It's, like, the only time I ever did anything normal was when, like, I was in a facility or, like, somebody else's house or... My grandma and grandpa, to some degree, had some normal stuff, but, like, we didn't do much with them. It wasn't like...
I guess you went to church with them, huh?
Yeah, my grandpa was every Sunday. If you're too sick to go to church, you're too sick to play, so we went to church, you know what I'm saying? And, like, we were kind of terrorists at church.
I'm playing with my damn cars. I'm going to church so I can play.
Oh, yeah, we were just, like, church wasn't that bad. I didn't hate church necessarily. I just hated probably getting up more than anything was really what it was. I just don't want to be up early. I think that's a
problem that a lot of kids have.
Yeah, that's probably why late church is good.
We get up early every single day for school. Why do we have to get up early for church?
Yeah. Yeah, but church was fine overall, I will say. It wasn't like something I hated. I do, for sure, my grandpa, I appreciate the hell out of him for doing that, the exposure to it. Because, like, don't get me wrong, being Christian, anybody who would be listening to this at this point would be saying, so they're going to anybody who's not Christian listening to this is going to discount the next 5 minutes of what I say, you know what I mean? But, like, just, obviously knowing the truth of God, and having that head start, to not have to, like, stumble around and find that first. I might have had to figure out who he was and, like, had to reteach myself type of thing, but at the very least, he pointed me in the right fucking direction. You know what I'm saying? So, like, from the grave, he definitely helped me out in that regard, because that's a huge, huge step up, and that's absolutely the most fundamental thing as far as the changes in my life go. If Jesus isn't involved, it doesn't happen. That's just a flat-out truth of it, because I had tried. I tried everything to change who I was. You have no idea how hard I tried. You have no fucking idea. To the point of I tried to kill myself to end who I was. That's how desperate I was to not be who I was anymore. That didn't work. Nothing worked short of I finally gave up and said, I can't do anything. I can't die. I can't live. I can't do anything. God help me. And he did. Thank you for joining us on the John Senne Ideas podcast, produced by MarketAdviser. We intend to upload a new podcast each week, so check back soon for more.